leaders have to be seen. And I think it's really important for people to hear, because especially when you're in a senior leadership position, you feel so busy. Your day-to-day is very different from your team leads, your supervisors, middle managers, and very different from your staff and individual contributors. It's really easy to stay very high level and miss the important step of directly connecting and communicating transparently with your staff. They want to hear from you. We do so many listening sessions and we do a lot of surveying. We ground our work in the voice of your employee to try to paint a picture of their experience. And we hear so often from different organizations that they want to hear and see their senior leaders more. So I think sometimes senior leaders might take that for granted, or might just get wrapped up in the busyness of their day-to-day, or they think, well, we did send a memo about this, so they know. If there are especially big changes, they need to hear from you. Welcome to the Workforce Success Podcast, brought to you by Mwano Consultancy, where we bring you practical, relevant content related to culture and climate that will help you maximize the positive impact you have within your organization. My name is Andrea Bruno, and today we're unpacking a great interview with Jensen Huang, founder and CEO of Nvidia, which is a multinational tech company based out of California. They develop software and chip units that have been pushing the boundaries of what computers are capable of since their inception. They currently represent 70% of the AI chip sales, and their share prices tripled in 2023. So this is a really interesting leader to hear from. And the interview was put out by the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and the full interview is available on their YouTube page. But within our conversation, we're going to share a couple of clips and references for context as we respond to a couple of different things. Now, this full interview covers a lot of business components and offers great insights from everything to how to create markets, how to innovate, how to take risk, how to navigate rapidly changing markets and setbacks. This interview offers a lot of great business insights, everything from creating markets, how to innovate, taking risks, navigating challenges and rapidly changing markets. But we are a workforce and culture success podcast, so we are going to focus on about 10 or 15 minutes that they spend in the middle, where he talks about his presence as a leader and how he creates a culture of success within his organization. And one of the reasons I am really excited to unpack this interview is because as I was listening to this, I was seeing so many themes and habits and mindsets from this leader that we are actively working to instill within the organizations that we partner with. So even though you might be listening to this podcast as someone who isn't in a tech company, or maybe your role isn't the CEO, these are leadership habits and mindsets that absolutely translate to any organization. You can take some of these concepts as a middle manager, a team lead, a director, all the way to president, CEO, AVPs, everyone. So I'm really excited to dive into this very applicable content. One of the first concepts I want to start with is the concept of your beliefs. And he references this a lot throughout the interview. He talks about starting with your core beliefs and how your beliefs are what ultimately drive your behavior and your decisions within the organization. He also references core beliefs as a grounding and centering place in times of adversity and stress. When you have setbacks, you can always go back to your core beliefs. So I want to start there, because he also makes the point that you should start with the end in mind. Where are you trying to go? What do you believe that your company is capable of doing? What do you believe that your department is capable of doing? What kind of culture are you trying to create? You have to understand your end goal and your core driving beliefs in order to then come up with a strategy and inform the decisions, so that along the way, you're making choices and creating environments that are intentionally getting you to where you want to go. For example, one of Nvidia's core beliefs is that they are able to challenge what computers are capable of doing. So a very fundamental element of their identity and the choices that they've made has had to do with innovation and creating markets. And when there are setbacks, they're able to come back to that and say, do we still believe that we are positioned to push the boundary of what computers are capable of? And if yes, then they're going to stay the course and keep going. If the answer is no, then they look at what they need to adjust. And we've done some really interesting activities with our partners and leadership groups within the organizations that we work with to help identify some of the beliefs that exist within their culture and how those beliefs impact their behaviors, how they show up for their employees, and then in turn, what their employee experience is, and does that positively or negatively contribute to the culture. So for example, if you hold a belief that you have to babysit your employees and that they're lazy and they're gonna take advantage of every inch that you give them, how are you gonna show up if that's a core belief that you're holding? You're probably going to be a little bit micromanaging. You might interpret their behavior negatively because the core belief that you're interpreting their behavior from, is that they're lazy or that they're not as hardworking as you. So when you have a core belief, that becomes a filter that you see and interpret everything through. And you might be more likely to criticize or micromanage and dictate and tell them what to do, as opposed to if you believe that your team or a particular individual on your team is really smart and totally capable and excited and committed to the work that they're doing, you're probably going to show up differently for that individual. You're probably going to give them a little more space, a little more autonomy to do what they need to do, and you're more likely to see the positives and to see their actions and even their successes and mistakes through a more positive lens. Now, on the receiving end of that behavior, the employee who experiences criticism, doubt, mistrust from you, feels micromanaged, they're going to feel that lack of trust and lack of respect from you. And then they're going to start to put up walls and guard themselves. Whereas the employee that is experiencing trust and respect from you by the autonomy that they're given the ability to make decisions for themselves day to day, that person is going to feel more respected and they're going to trust and respect you more in turn. Once you have a sense of where you're trying to go, what your core beliefs are that are driving your culture and your organization, then you need as a leader to set about creating an environment intentionally that enables and allows the work and the behaviors that you're looking for to come about. And so we're going to show a clip really quickly where he talks about the role of a CEO in creating culture and defining culture as the operating system of your organization. So we'll take a look.
I'm surrounded by a lot of great people. A CEO should have the most direct reports by definition, because the people that reports to the CEO requires the least amount of management. It makes no sense to me that CEOs have so few people reporting to them, except for one fact that I know to be true. The knowledge, the information of a CEO is supposedly so valuable, so secretive, you can only share it with 2 other people, or 3. And their information is so invaluable, so incredibly secretive, that they can only share it with a couple more. Well, I don't believe in a culture and environment where the information that you possess is the reason why you have power. I would like us all to contribute to the company, and our position in the company should have something to do with our ability to reason through complicated things, lead other people to achieve greatness, inspire, empower other people, support other people. Those are the reasons why the management team exists, in service of all of the other people that work in the company, to create the conditions by which all of these amazing people volunteer to come work for you instead of all the other amazing high-tech companies around the world. They volunteer to work for you. And so you should create the conditions by which they could do their life's work, which is my mission. You probably heard it. I've said that, pretty clearly, and I believe that. What my job is very simply to create the conditions by which you could do your life's work. And so how do I do that? What does that condition look like? Well, that condition should result in a great deal of empowerment. You can only be empowered if you understand the circumstance, isn't that right? You have to understand the context of the situation you're in order for you to come up with great ideas. And so I have to create a circumstance where you understand the context, which means you have to be informed. And the best way to be informed is for there to be as little layers of information mutilation, right, between us. And so that's the reason why it's very often that I'm reasoning through things like in an audience like this. I say, first of all, this is the beginning facts. These are the data that we have. This is how I would reason through it. These are some of the assumptions. These are some of the unknowns. These are some of the knowns. And so you reason through it. And now you've created an organization that's highly empowered. Nvidia is 30,000 people. We're the smallest large company in the world. We're a tiny little company. But every employee is so empowered, and they're making smart decisions on my behalf every single day. And the reason for that is because, they understand my condition. They understand my condition. I'm very transparent with people. And I believe that I can trust you with the information. Oftentimes the information is hard to hear, and the situations are complicated, but I trust that you can handle it. A lot of people hear me say, you're adults here. You can handle this. Sometimes they're not really adults. They just graduated. I'm just kidding. I know that when I first graduated, I was barely an adult, and but I was fortunate that I was trusted with important information. So I want to do that. I want to create the conditions for people to do that.
So there's a couple really important key points that he says in there. Number one is that it is the CEO's job to create the conditions for the results that they're looking for. So, for example, one thing that he's looking for in his organization is empowerment. He names that very specifically, and he's doing things in his organization that allow and support that empowerment. And specifically speaking, it's transparent communication, giving them information, helping them understand how he thinks, what they're trying to do, and minimizing the opportunities for communication breakdown within the organization. I think these are things that are often overlooked in organizations, and senior leaders don't always. I think this is something that is often overlooked in organizations, that transparent, intentional communication and giving people the information and then the freedom and space and the skills to make smart decisions on your behalf so that you can then trust them. The next concept that he talks about that is really important to intentionally creating a positive culture is, what are your KPIs or your key performance indicators?
We have this phrase in the company there's a phrase called key performance indicators. Unfortunately, KPIs are hard to understand. I find KPIs hard to understand. What's a good KPI? A lot of people, when we look for KPIs, we go gross margins. That's not a KPI. That's a result. You're looking for something that's an early indicators of future positive results, okay? And as early as possible. And the reason for that is because you want that early sign that you're going in the right direction. And so we have this phrase, it's called EOIFS, early indicators, EIOFS, early indicators of future success. And it helps people because I was using it all the time to give the company hope that, hey, look, we solved this problem, we solved that problem, we solved this problem. The markets didn't exist, but there were important problems, and that's what the company's about, to solve these problems. We want to be sustainable, and therefore the markets have to exist at some point. But you want to decouple the result from evidence that you're doing the right thing. Okay, and so that's how you kind of solve this problem of investing into something that's very, very far away, and having the conviction to stay on the road, is to find as early as possible the indicators that you're doing the right things. And so start with a core belief. Unless something changes your mind, you continue to believe in it, and look for early indicators of future success.
He describes them as early indicators of future success, because a lot of times organizations will have a metric that's really about an outcome and not about the process. And early indicators of future success has to do with measuring and checkpoints along the way in your process to make sure that the behaviors are the right behaviors to drive the outcomes you're looking for, that those behaviors are happening. So for example, if one of your objectives is to innovate and create new things and push boundaries, part of the process along the way and a behavior that you might want to reinforce would be generating of new ideas. So something you could track as an early indicator of future success would be the number of new ideas that your team brought to the table and explored in a week, in a month, in a quarter. Sometimes the work that we do, if we're trying to improve culture, a lot of times we talk to leaders about getting out to their teams more and having more face time with their teams, or building trust. So if an outcome that you're looking for is a strong sense of trust within your organization, within your teams, or we want to create more face time between leaders and their direct reports, one metric you could look at is the number of one-on-one meetings that they have, the frequency with which they get out to their teams and connect, whether that's a formal one-on-one meeting, whether that's informal, depending on the structure of your organization. You might have to get out, physically walk around the office, or walk around if you're, if you have multiple locations, how often are you getting out to the different sites that you might be overseeing? Those are the types of behaviors that will drive the results you're looking for.
You've had to steer the company through some very challenging times, like when it lost 80% of its market cap amid the financial crisis because Wall Street didn't believe in your bet on ML. In times like these, how do you steer the company and keep the employees motivated at the task at hand?
My reaction during that time is the same reaction I had about this week. Earlier today, you asked me about this week. My pulse was exactly the same. This week is no different than last week or the week before that. And so the opposite of that, when you drop 80%, don't get me wrong. When your share price drops 80%, it's a little embarrassing, okay? And you just want to wear a T-shirt that says "wasn't my fault." But even more than that, you just don't want to get out of your bed. You don't want to leave the house. All of that is true. All of that is true. But then you go back to just doing your job. I woke up at the same time. Prioritize my day in the same way. I go back to what do I believe. You got to always gut check back to the core. What do you believe? What are the most important things? And just check them off. Sometimes it's helpful to, family loves me. Okay, check. Double check. Right? And so you just got to check it off, and you go back to your core, and then go back to work. And then every conversations go back to the core. Keep the company focused back on the core. Do you believe in it? Did something change? The stock price changed, but did something else change? Did physics change? Did gravity change? Did all of the things that we assumed, that we believed, that led to our decision, did any of those things change? Because if those things change, you got to change everything. But if none of those things change, you change nothing. Keep on going.
So we've talked about creating a future vision, understanding where you're trying to go, and then we've talked about the importance of creating an environment that supports and enables the culture that you're looking for. And then we've also talked about the importance of measuring success and benchmarking success along the way. There are a number of great points that he makes in this interview that just have to do with leadership presence, how leaders show up, and how that drives and connects to your culture. So one theme that really resonated with me that he talks about is how do you deal as a leader with setbacks and challenges? And this has resonated with me because we see a lot in our work with partners, and I've experienced this in my professional journey as well, that when times get stressful, that stress trickles down. And how you handle and respond to stress, that is a really key component of what makes up your culture. And it's the times of stress that you often, as an organization, need your leaders and your employees to be the most focused, the most creative, the most resilient. But when you as a leader are coming in and yelling at people, or you're short with people and you're allowing your emotions and your stress to get the best of you, that has a negative impact. You're modeling a behavior that you probably don't want to see your, lower level managers or your employees on the front lines demonstrating in those times of increased stress or in times of setback and challenge. So as a leader, it's important for you to reflect on how you're showing up when you have a setback, when your team isn't hitting the mark, or when there's a time where it's really busy and it's all hands on decks, or something breaks and all your workflows are completely interrupted. Whatever challenges and stressors your team, your organization is facing, it's important that you as a leader set the tone and try to stay even keel. So a couple of good reflection questions that you could take away is, when do I notice myself feeling really stressed and angry? Is it a certain time of the day? Is there a certain time of the year? As we know, different organizations have different ebbs and flows of things that happen throughout the year. That could be a busier time or a more relaxed time. How do I as a leader handle change? Some leaders thrive in the unknown, in the curveballs. Some leaders get really stressed out and do not do well when their perfect plan gets messed up and you have to adjust. Some people get really upset when they feel disrespected. You might get more stressed out or respond negatively when a peer or someone that you have to work with is not showing you the respect, or maybe not giving you the information. Maybe you get really frustrated by the red tape you can run into, where you'd like to just make decisions and go try things, but you can't. So stop and think and ask yourself, what are the times of stress for me personally? How do I notice when my team is feeling stressed? What are the busier or more chaotic times of our workflows, or the flow of our year, or the flow of our month? Have you slowed down to name those and notice how you and the people within your organization are showing up? Another thing you could do is ask your staff, hey staff, what stresses you out? What do you notice about me as a leader? How am I handling stress? Can you tell when I'm stressed? What do I typically do? You might be surprised at what your team notices or doesn't notice about your habits as a leader. But it's really important to check yourself, check in, reflect, have awareness, and adjust to the way that you're handling stress. We're going to share another clip about leadership presence and how to be an engaged leader. And you're going to see that this CEO does some things very differently from a lot of leaders in most organizations.
Leaders have to be seen, unfortunately. That's the hard part. I was an electrical engineering student, and I was quite young when I went to school. When I went to college, I was still 16 years old, and so I was young when I did everything. And so I was a bit of an introvert. I'm shy. I don't enjoy public speaking. I'm delighted to be here. I'm not suggesting, but it's not something that I do naturally. And so when things are challenging, it's not easy to be in front of precisely the people that you care most about, you know? And the reason for that is because, could you imagine a company meeting with just our stock price just dropped by 80%? And the most important thing I have to do as the CEO is this, to come and face you, explain it. And partly, you're not sure why, partly, you're not sure how long, how bad, you just don't know these things. But you still gotta explain it. Face all these people, and you know what they're thinking. You know, some of them are probably thinking we're doomed. Some people are probably thinking you're an idiot, and some people are probably thinking, you know, something else. And so, there are a lot of things that people are thinking, and you know that they're thinking those things, but you still have to get in front of them and deal, you know, do the hard work.
So the quote that stands out for me in this clip is, leaders have to be seen. And I think it's really important for people to hear, because especially when you're in a senior leadership position, you feel so busy. Your day-to-day is very different from your team leads, your supervisors, middle managers, and very different from your staff and individual contributors. It's really easy to stay very high level and miss the important step of directly connecting and communicating transparently with your staff. They want to hear from you. We do so many listening sessions and we do a lot of surveying. We ground our work in the voice of your employee to try to paint a picture of their experience. And we hear so often from different organizations that they want to hear and see their senior leaders more. So I think sometimes senior leaders might take that for granted, or might just get, you know, wrapped up in the busyness of their day-to-day, or they think, well, we did send a memo about this, so they know. If there are especially big changes, they need to hear from you. So it goes a long way to be present as a leader, especially in times of change, in times of stress. They want to see you, they want to hear from you, and that is your opportunity to set the tone, to set expectations, to pull people together with a shared purpose and how you guys want to move forward together. And the more you transparently explain and proactively communicate to people what they can expect and what they need to do, the more empowered they're going to be when they have to go about their day-to-day. The more considered they're going to feel in your culture, because they see their leader coming to them and giving them information. That shows that you value that activity. You're valuing connecting with them and talking to them and giving them information. It's showing that you know that they need to hear this information from you and that you want to be there to support them, let them ask questions, so everybody has the information, understand what's going on. So showing up, be present is a huge nugget of information from this really, really incredible CEO. The next clip talks about how he engages with his direct reports and having 30 direct reports as a founder and CEO, which is very unique. And then the way he approaches connecting with them and the time that he gives them. So we'll listen to that real quick and then talk about it.
I'm surrounded by geniuses, yeah. Other geniuses, unbelievable. Nvidia is well known to have singularly the best management team on the planet. This is the deepest technology management team the world's ever seen. I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of them, and they're just geniuses. Business teams, marketing teams, sales teams, just incredible. Engineering teams, research teams, unbelievable, yeah.
Your employees say that your leadership style is very engaged. You have 50 direct reports. You encourage people across all parts of the organization to send you the top 5 things on their mind. And you constantly remind people that no task is beneath you. Yeah. Can you tell us why you've purposefully designed such a flat organization? And how should we be thinking about our organizations that we design in the future?
No task is to me, no task is beneath me, because remember, I used to be a dishwasher, and I mean that. And I used to clean toilets. I mean, I cleaned a lot of toilets. I've cleaned more toilets than all of you combined. And some of them just can't unsee. I don't know what to tell you. You know, that's life. And so you can't show me a task that's beneath me. Now I'm not doing it only because of whether it's beneath me or not beneath me. If you send me something and you want my input on it, and I can be of service to you, and in my review of it, share with you how I reasoned through it, I've made a contribution to you. I've made it possible for you to see how I reason through something, and by reasoning, as you know, how someone reasons through something empowers you. You go, oh my gosh, that's how you reason through something like this. It's not as complicated as it seems. This is how you reason through something that's super ambiguous. This is how you reason through something that's incalculable. This is how you reason through something that seems to be very scary. This is how you seem, do you understand? And so I show people how to reason through things all the time. Strategy things, how to forecast something, how to break a problem down, and you're empowering people all over the place. And so that's how I see it. If you send me something, you want me to help review it, I'll do my best, and I'll show you how I would do it. In the process of doing that, of course, I learned a lot from you. Is that right? You gave me a seed of a lot of information. I learned a lot. And so I feel rewarded by the process.
What strikes me so much in this interview is the humility and respect that he is demonstrating. So he says, I'm surrounded by a lot of really great people. At one point in the interview, he says, I'm surrounded by geniuses. So he's calling his staff, his leaders, and his employees geniuses. He's describing a process where he knows that if he connects with them, he's going to learn something from them too, as much as he can offer them and mentor and demonstrate to them how to reason through. So he knows every time he spends time explaining something and talking through something with an employee and hearing their ideas and having a dialogue with them, they're learning, they're becoming more empowered, and he's learning as well. I mean, that practice as a leader is probably keeping him much more attuned to all the inner workings and what's happening on the ground and the decisions that are being made and the challenges that they're running into than someone who is running from meeting to meeting and is trusting that, someone else is sending that email or relaying that piece of information. It is really, really important that leaders are accessible. And not only accessible, but he's demonstrating a mindset of respect towards the people that he's working with, that he trusts them to make decisions. And engaging with them is worth his time. And that is something that makes people feel respected. And it's authentic because you can tell when he speaks about it, he really believes it. And he's following it up with the fact that he has 30 direct reports and he's making time for them. And that's an important part of the culture. So think about if that's how your boss is showing up for you, how that then trickles down to the way you show up for yourself, for the people that you might supervise, and for your peers as well. I mean, when the CEO is demonstrating that, that's what's going to replicate throughout the organization. One challenge that we often see is a sense that there's just never enough time. It feels really challenging for leaders to make time to connect with their employees. It feels like an extra step. Sometimes you have leaders in certain positions where they're very task-oriented people. And so the connection time and the space to connect with people feels like pleasantries. It's nice to have. It doesn't really help the core business. So I think it's really important, one, to recognize, going back to that theme of beliefs, the beliefs that you hold about this work and about your role does impact your behavior and your employee experience. So, and the belief that you might have about what it means to connect with your staff and the value that that holds, that's going to either motivate you to make time for it and prioritize it, or not. So if you find yourself going, this sounds really nice, but I don't have time for that. That might be a flag for you that you don't see the benefit and to make it a priority. So I really want to emphasize, and this is something I've experienced in my professional work and as well all the partner work that we do, again, where we are in the intersection of the employee experience and the systems and processes and policies that they're living in, and the leadership goals and the leadership habits. We live in this space. And I've seen so often this dynamic where it feels like an extra thing. It feels like you don't have the time. But if you make the time and you do it right, it actually improves the efficiency of your organization. And we did a workshop a few months ago with a group of senior leaders where we explored this challenge they were feeling of delegating tasks, of making time to connect with people, and they just want to kind of get it done. And everyone's busy and everyone has pressure to get the work done. And sometimes it feels like it's just going to get done if the right way and faster if I do it myself. But when you take a step back and you see, what would happen if you trusted someone else to do that? What does that free you up to do? And when you look at it, taking the time to build trust and connection and increase the flow of information and mutual understanding, that allows your employees to make decisions for themselves. That's fewer emails coming your way, fewer mistakes being made that then end up on your desk. It's greater employee engagement, a greater sense of felt respect and consideration. Taking that time actually will improve the flow of operations and also just the culture of collaboration and trust and mutual respect within your teams. So it is important to do. It will actually make the work you're doing more efficient. So making the time is critical. And it's not about, okay, let me say hi at the beginning of my email. How was your work? How was your weekend? It is those sort of pleasantries, but it is also slowing down and creating space to get out and connect when you don't have an agenda, when you don't have a problem to solve. Some of the ways that we have found some success with our partners is doing like job shadowing. So kind of making a schedule where you just plan to get out and you say, I'm just gonna see what your day-to-day is for a couple of hours. And if you schedule and plan and you make the time, what we find is it works and they're really glad that they do it. We have leaders that come back and say, oh my gosh, I had never knew XYZ about this job or this individual. That's incredible. Or, you learn about someone's past employment experience and you're so impressed. You didn't know because you never met that person. Maybe you didn't interview them. And that gives you a greater perspective of the quality of the people that are helping run your organization. That makes you more able to trust them. The better you get to know them, the better you understand how they're doing things and making decisions. We've also found success in listening sessions, so scheduling, and they don't even always have to be long, having opportunities to get in front of your team and the team having a voice, with that is really, really important. And just walking around too, just walking around casually and checking in, but leaving space for conversation about, what they're excited to do this summer, what they're doing on over a break or a vacation time. If they have school-age kids, what they're doing with their family time. What are they excited about? What hobbies are they excited about? All of these little things that really could take 5 minutes of your day to have a conversation with someone and be accessible to them. So to sum up everything that we've talked about so far, it's really important that you are aware of your beliefs. That is your starting point. That is what you go back to regularly to check that you're on course, to recenter yourself in times of stress or setbacks. So as a leader, I would encourage you to think about, what are the beliefs that I'm holding about my organization? Do all of my employees, or maybe you want to focus on a department or just your team, Do we hold the same core beliefs about our purpose, about our customers, about each other, that is intentionally creating the culture that we want to create, intentionally supporting and driving the good behaviors, the productive behaviors that will get us where we want to go, and discouraging some of the problematic behaviors that we don't want to see. So being more aware of your beliefs and making sure that there's an alignment on core beliefs throughout your teams and your organization is really important. Measuring your success is really important, and thinking about not just outcomes, but what are the little habits and behaviors along the way that you can measure, that if we're doing these things along the process, we're more likely to get the outcome that we want down the road. And then as a leader, are you owning your role in creating the environment for your staff to be the most successful that they can be? What are you looking for? Is it empowerment? Is it creativity? Is it autonomy? Is it consistency? What do you need from your staff to maximize the work that's being done, to maximize the positive relationships that you're trying to create? And then work back from there. And invite your team into that conversation. Be present, be curious. Give them information and hear what you can learn from them too. Because that should also inform the culture and the decisions and the processes that keep your work alive, that drive the work that you're there to do. And with that, making time as a leader to connect, making sure that your communication is consistent, is transparent, is frequent, that there's face time, and that there's opportunity for dialogue back and forth. If you found this content interesting, please subscribe and share this video with a colleague. And thank you so much for joining us on the Workforce Success Podcast.